Coming up on this week's episode, the Falcon Heavy center core goes boom, a Raptor engine goes boom, and at least half of the fairing goes not splash. Let's get ludicrous. Hi, and welcome to Our Ludicrous Future. This is the podcast where we talk about all the cool stuff happening right now that's going to make our future totally ludicrous. I'm DJ Joe Scott. With me is Timmy D.
Oh, God, what? Why leave for a week and this is what happens? You go to vacation and all of a sudden, okay. Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut from space, sure. And with us is Ben Sullins.
What's up, guys? It's Ben Sullins from Teslanomics. Joe, I thought drugs were still illegal in Texas. See, what's your excuse here? I clearly, don't have one, so.
Well, I traveled to Europe, and I brought a bunch of cool stuff back, so.
Cool stuff.
Got it. Cool stuff, neat stuff.
Like a sunburn.
Stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, like a sunburn. Some islands, maybe you purchase an island or two. I don't know what you did.
I'm in.
I'm not doing that well.
At that? Have you looked at that? It's actually not that crazy. There's a website dedicated to this.
To buying islands?
Yes, and they're like off the coast of Chile, and they're like $300,000 to $500,000, which depending on where you live, that may sound like an insane amount of money. But like for me living in San Diego, that's like not even an expensive house. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Way more reasonable than I thought. Yeah. I thought like minimum would be like $20 million for any island anywhere.
No, they're like, so it's me and some friends.
Goals.
Seriously, a couple years ago, we're looking at like, all right, if like 4 or 5 of us went in on this, could we just buy an island down in Chile and just like, I don't know, like timeshare it between us or just call it a day and whatever.
Goals.
So the problem is there's no resources on these islands, so it's like you have to ship everything in.
Yeah. No, that's what I was wondering. Is it actually a habitable island, or is it just a big rock covered in bird poop? Yeah.
Well, it's like that with a house on it. A lot of them have houses already built.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So you get... Okay, I'm going to actually look into this. I
thought you'd have to build a house, too.
We could do an Our Ludicrous Future house island.
We'd be like the next fire festival is basically how it would work out.
We end up with just geodesic domes from FEMA. Whoops.
Oh man, there is actually a really cool place, Tim. If you're coming out and you want to bring your passport, we could go down to Mexico, and there are these places in Valle de Guadalupe, the Napa Valley down there in Mexico, that are these like not glass, but they're like plastic domes you sleep in. And so you're like in a vineyard. It's in a whole area that is like very rural, very kind of remote. And you at night, your whole entire thing is just like a glass bubble.
Sweet.
And then in the day, they have these curtains that come up and cover the whole thing, so you're not just
not in a greenhouse
roasted in there. So there's an option.
That's awesome.
So there are places like that in Iceland or Finland or something, so you can see the Northern Lights?
Yes. Yeah, I think Norway has it too, and I think they're starting to pop up because that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. I mean, if there was a big enough solar flare, you'd be able to see them there in Texas, Joe.
It's almost like I did a video about this. Fairly recently.
Should we move on right away? I'm going to be probably talking for about 6 hours here because...
Cool. I'll go grab a little Debbie and just let you do your thing.
Yeah.
Is that what the kids are calling it nowadays?
No, that's Molly. A little Molly.
What did happen there?
Let's start off actually we'll go in chronological order. So we're going to start off with, we got some updates about the Raptor engines. I think you guys are familiar with Raptor engines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not as much as you, but yeah.
But I want to know how close Ben's paying attention. Ben, tell me what a Raptor engine is.
Azimuth.
Ben's like a kid who just learned a new word, and he just like throws it out there.
Okay.
Seriously.
Raptor's the new BFR engine, I'll call it. I don't know I can never remember the name. Merlin was the first one? Or the current one, I guess? Mm-hmm. Is that right? Mm-hmm. It's a pure methane? Or methalox, would it be?
Yep, methalox technically, because it's methane and oxygen.
Look at that. And something about it's super efficient, right? Is it the type of nozzle? Is it using one of those nozzles you talked about that's Like just designed differently, or is that something else? That's a
It's
second
something
stage
else.
kind of thing.
Nah, it's not.
Oh, okay. I'm losing it.
You were.
Don't blow it off. Our boy's doing real good.
No. I was gonna say
I'll
you
quit
were
while I was
nailing it.
ahead.
You were nailing it. Everything so far, but the thing that makes it efficient is it's a full flow stage combustion cycle engine.
Full flow. That's what I meant to say.
Dub in.
Which again, if you are listening and you need a reminder on what the heck that is, I have a 50 freaking minute long mini documentary dedicated to exactly that, because it just
put a
takes that
lot of
long
work
to
into
really.
this.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Yeah, you guys know I've been trying to like get my butt back down to Texas because I want to see the Star Hopper hop. Like actually hop, not just sit there shackled to the ground and fire its engine for a second. I want to see this thing lift off the freaking ground and fly around like a drone, and then land. But it keeps just getting pushed back. Welcome to rockets. If you guys aren't familiar yet, been trying to catch Falcon Heavy for a year.
Oh yeah.
You know
Still
what it's
waiting
like.
on my reimbursement for the travel expenses, Tesla. In case you're listening.
Really?
Yeah. They emailed me the day that it got rescheduled for the third time. Like, okay, and if this changes your travel plans, just email us your receipts. And I'm like, it absolutely did. Here you go. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll get right back to you. A month goes by. Oh yeah, we'll get right back to you. A couple months go by, and I'm just like,
Youch.
free supercharging. Come on. just hook it up. Something would be nice.
So
anyways, go ahead.
The deal is here, they're still so at this point in development of the Raptor engine. The Raptor engine is a totally new engine for this company. They are currently finishing production on their 6th engine and ramping it up, but each time they're still doing their typical SpaceX thing where they every single one is still pretty bespoke, but they're like tweaking it a little bit because they're trying to make them mass produce. Like let me share with you guys what Elon was saying, because he just talked all willy-nilly about it the other day and we learned a lot. So basically it all started because Elon decided that he officially declared in Musk version that he sees the Starship landing on the moon before Mars, which we knew, he was planning to fly people around the moon, and he's been talking about the moon a lot lately. I think it's mostly because NASA's so focused on the moon that he knows, if he could secure a contract and align with NASA on that, he could easily, secure money for the Starship program. That's my bet, basically. But yeah, he basically said, we're going to be taking this baby to the moon. It's only 3 days away. You don't need interplanetary orbital synchronization. So, with the moon, you can go anytime, literally any day. And Mars, you basically only have about a 2 or 3 month window out of about every 2 years where it's really, where you can actually get to Mars relatively easy. And easy, I need to put in major quotes. So I asked after that, I go, any big changes happening between the new serial numbers of Raptor? How is the testing coming along in Texas? Ready to stick another Raptor up in the hopper again anytime soon, which sounds very dirty.
Yeah, that was naughty.
Didn't necessarily intend to suggest putting a Raptor in a hopper, but I guess that's what's going to happen. And this is interesting. So Elon said, Raptor liberated its oxygen turbine stator, appears to be mechanical, not metal combustion failure. So we need to update the design and replace some parts. Production is ramping exponentially though. Serial number 6 almost done, aiming for an engine every 12 hours by the end of the year. There's a lot to unpack in that one tweet.
Why do you need that? Why do you need a Raptor engine every 12 hours?
Because each booster is going to have 31 of these engines on the first stage and like 7 on the upper stage. And they're currently trying to develop two of these full-size systems. Like there's literally two being built.
A month and a half, you've made them all, right?
I don't know. By the end of the year, maybe every 12 hours. So I guess, 2 months really, probably. And that's like peak output. He talks about that in a little bit. Okay, so let's dive into the first part. The liberated its oxygen turbine stator. So if you recall in my video that I talk about turbines and stuff, the oxygen turbine stator is there's that preburner, and there's a thing called a stator, which helps direct the flow onto the turbine. So it takes the combusted, the now combusted, super crazy hot, super high pressure preburner exhaust, and pipes it and shoots it straight at the turbine, and that gets the turbine spinning. Think about like a, like a turbine on a hydroelectric power plant. There's probably some vanes and stuff that help direct the water towards the spinning turbine to maximize its efficiency, and that's basically what the stator is on a pre-burner on an engine like this. So it sounds like it just kind of went bye-bye. It had a bad day, but luckily it sounds like it's not the metal's holding up, but it was a mechanical failure, which is, I think, in the world of the metallurgy part, the developing of the metal is the crazy hard part. Making little changes here and there to the mechanical design is, I think, at this point, a lot easier than redeveloping your own metal alloy. So, yeah. Any questions so far, guys?
I don't know. You lost me at Hopper.
Okay,
All
so
right.
is this the boom you were talking about? Is this him saying that something went boom on a Raptor?
Yes. So when the Raptor liberates its oxygen turbine stator, that means that basically that part went kaboomy. Yeah.
And
It liberated it from the planet.
Correct. It
By
liberated it
exploding.
at least from itself, and it's probably in a field
Okay.
300 meters away or something. Like, for real. That's probably what happens when parts when parts are spinning at 30,000 RPM under, insane pressures. I think he mentions, I think it's 700 bar or something. I don't quite remember, but it's very, very, very high pressure. When things let go and break, stuff goes flying everywhere. So, yeah. So that means, so we knew that serial number 4 had a similar, I don't know what type of hiccup, but some kind of problem where it's no longer being utilized to be used on the hopper for anything other than fit checks. And now serial number 5 also had a little kaboomy. And so we're looking at serial number 6, hopefully having the right stuff to survive.
Did it go kaboom inside of the hopper, or was it just like in a testing bay or something?
Exactly. It's on the test stand, which is in McGregor, Texas.
Okay.
So
Got it. Okay.
what they're working on there is they're really just trying to get all of these engines. An engine needs to be able to go through the entire operation of, throttling up, throttling down, full thrust, full duration, and they're really just starting to push them to the limits. And so far they are, and doing so, they're still finding new variables, new things to adjust to make it so it's ready to go, basically. Gotcha. And it's probably a really good idea to get these all totally figured out before you stick it up on the hopper. And then can you imagine if an engine let go while the hopper is 20 meters off the ground, 60 feet off the ground, and have an engine go out? Let's see, 9.8 meters per second. That's a lot of velocity hitting the ground with a giant pressurized tank, Yeah. So we keep going because Harry Stoltz replied and said, wait, around 730 engines a year? Wow. So that's kind of your reaction there, Ben. And Elon said, full year production is usually around 70% peak of daily rate, so around 500 a year. Still non-trivial at 100,000 tons of thrust per year. That's, when you think about that, they're going to be producing...
Are they going to sell these to other companies, or is this just for their own use?
Just for their own use, but...
And will it be used in Falcon 9 as well? Like a new version, like a Falcon 10?
I think it'll be a type of thing where they probably will only do I don't think this will ever be anywhere near 500 a year, just because I don't think they'll have that big of a fleet for a while.
Right.
But someday, I when they get to a fleet of 10, that's still only what, like 400,
300?
400 or 500,
And then so a fleet of 10, you're talking about a fleet of 10 starships?
Correct. With the boosters,
whatever.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but then again, knowing SpaceX, as soon as they get it figured out, they're going to just start cranking them out and getting ready to, to produce a ton of starships and take over. Because once the starship is flying...
Do they make all these in LA?
Yes, they do.
Really?
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yep, right there in Hawthorne.
Yep.
So this was a number that I really wanted to see. I finally kind of got some numbers. I go, cost-wise, how much more expensive is Raptor than Merlin to produce? Twice as much, 3 times-ish. And I told him that I had estimated the Raptor being around $2 million, but that was just a roughly educated guess. And Elon said more than that now, so more than $2 million for now, but he thinks it'll be 10% of that once they get into volume, or like less than 10% of that once they actually get to volume. So Eric Ralph from Teslarati said, as in $200,000 per Raptor once the production is fully ramped. And I replied saying, that's kind of how I read it too. More than 200,000, but even if it's less than 500,000, that would be pretty crazy. And this is actually the number that tells us really what it is. Since Raptor produces 200 tons of force, cost per ton would be $1,000. So therefore, take that times 200 and you get $2 million per engine. However, Raptor is designed for 1,000 flights. I estimated 50 in my video, so I was 20 times off. It was with negligible maintenance, so cost per ton over time would actually be around $1 per ton of thrust, which is, of course, massively unheard of in the industry. And that's kind of the whole point. That's right there. That summarizes why the Raptor exists and why they're pursuing it and why it's so awesome. And so this keeps going. Sorry, this ended up being like a long conversation, basically. So I go 1,000 flights with little maintenance, and I'm just shocked because we're talking about engines being used 3 or 4 times now. The space shuttle, I think, was reused. One engine was reused like 25 or 30 or 35 times. I don't remember. I talked about it in my video. And going from 30, even hitting 50 or 100 is a massive number. 1,000 times of reusing an engine is like, we've just never seen anything like that outside of the, airliners, outside of the, the air industry, really. And so basically I said, is it something about the seals, the bearings, the materials? What exactly is it? And he said, other rocket engines were designed for no or almost no reuse. Raptor is designed for heavy and immediate reuse, like an aircraft jet engine, with inspections requiring only after many flights, assuming instrumentation shows it good. Using hydrostatic bearings certainly helps. And I don't really know too much about hydrostatic bearings, but I guess they're good.
They help.
They certainly
They're
help,
very
actually.
helpful.
They're very
hydrostatic. Helpful. Yeah, better than hydrodynamic. Yeah.
And for sure, much better than glue bearings. The other option of glue bearings. Okay, so I said, how many flights is the Merlin actually good for with no major refurbishment? Now that you've reflown it so many times, is the bearing the limiting factor, or is it the coking, which is where the carbon buildup from the fuel actually physically coats the engine all around and can get sticky and gunky and clog, injectors and all these different things. So Elon said, could probably do 1,000 flights too. Turbine blade fatigue cracking would require periodic welding repair or issues. Probably some seals and bearings as well. Coking not really an issue, which is interesting because I've heard that the Merlin engine is a cokey, little dirty old engine, I don't know how to word that well.
Coking in LA.
It's coking in LA. That's basically the truth. So the turbine blade is one of the biggest things that they had to develop for the Raptor. And so we'll talk about that just a little bit more in a second. So Anthony Lamole says, what's the highest thrust that the Raptor has achieved so far? Any closer to hitting that 300 bar? And he said, same as last time, although we made design improvements that could yield about 7 bar or more. Does this keep going? Where does this end? Okay, so now I'm confused because then all of a sudden he went on to talk about, guys, this just kept going.
Does he talk about Grimes here eventually? Because I think
probably. Let's see if this is the thread. I don't like how Twitter made it really hard to find threads because you can, I don't know, you can get lost now in these.
So what's the main
takeaway on that?
Then?
So I'm not spending an hour on it. Basically, the main takeaway is they're also developing a Raptor that does not throttle at all. Well, deep throttle. Which you don't necessarily need. If you have 31 engines, you can have ones that don't throttle on the outside, and then the main time you need throttling is when you're landing. You need that precise control. But they can actually get more thrust out of it if they remove the throttles, just basically have it be on and off, right? And doing so, when you have 31 engines, you can also turn off engines to do some throttling. As a matter of fact, the Falcon Heavy launch just the other night, I realized I heard the announcer say that they actually turn off 2 of the engines on each of the outside booster cores during ascent just to lower the throttle. Because
it's like
engines run
on a screen or something.
What was that?
It's like pixels on a screen or something.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, the engines run most efficiently at full throttle. They're optimized for that. So they have the highest specific impulse at full throttle. So by throttling down engines, they're all running, not quite as at optimal everything, right? So by turning off engines, you actually are still able to use the other engines at full throttle. And so that's just an interesting fact that I didn't know they're even remotely, looking for. So I hope they call those ones like the Velociraptors or something, because they'll produce more thrust.
But Raptor is a type of Falcon, so it would have to be in that vein. Ding, ding, ding.
But dang it. Yeah, I don't know. You lost me there.
Well,
Dinosaurs.
So these are designed to be reused 1,000 times, but have they ever reused any other parts or things recently, maybe? Maybe boosters on something? Have they reused anything like that?
I think I see where you're going. Ding, 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 segue time. This last launch, just the other night, SpaceX launched a Falcon Heavy, and for the first time reused actual Falcon Heavy sidecore boosters on a Falcon Heavy. And you guys saw those boosters fly.
These were the roasted variety, right? They went to the store. They were like, okay, regular boosters or roasted? Let's go
I call them
roasted.
toasty, but that's just me.
Toasted?
Toasted, yeah. So isn't it weird to think you guys actually saw those boosters go to space, come back and land? You heard the sonic booms and they re-entered.
Those were the same ones? Because that's what I was wondering. So to recap, Falcon Heavy just went off again with reused boosters for the first time. And they were the ones from earlier this year, not the first ever Falcon Heavy.
Correct. Yes.
Got it.
So the first ever Falcon Heavy, those were actually used boosters too, but they're Falcon 9s repurposed to be Falcon Heavy boosters. And now these were the first time that proper Falcon Heavy side boosters were reused. So the other night, what night was this? Monday night or something? SpaceX had by far their most ambitious launch ever. This was STP-2, and this thing was absolutely jam-packed with so many events. I couldn't even keep up, talking about them during my live stream of it. Let me just pull up here. I've got my pre-launch preview, which will give you kind of that rundown. So here's what it was. It was the STP-2, which is Space Test Program, an experimental set of 24 satellites for the U.S. Department of Defense, NASA, and the NOAA. And the customer was actually the U.S. Department of Defense. And so the crazy thing is, some of these satellites went to one orbit, some other satellites went to another orbit, and some other satellites went to a completely different orbit. They did 3 major different sets of orbit with one rocket.
It was 4.
Well, they had to do 4 burns.
Oh, got
to
it.
get to those 3, yeah.
Yep, exactly. So the first 2 were in similar altitudes, but very different inclinations, 20 degrees off, which means tilting it basically. And that actually takes a crazy amount of energy to do an inclination change. As if that wasn't enough, then they raised the orbit to medium Earth orbit, which is where GPS satellites are, and released another satellite. And that took that was after almost, I think, 4 or 6 hours or something after the after the launch began. It was there were so many events. Can you guys imagine the programming? Joe, did you watch the launch?
I saw it after the fact.
Did you see
It was pretty late, right?
Yeah, it was really 2:30 my time, I think, or something, or 1:30 my time.
Yeah, I kind of just saw the highlights, so I probably didn't see the thing that you're talking about.
Oh, deploying, they had to constantly turn the upper stage, pop off a satellite, then turn it in a different direction, pop off a different satellite, every 2 minutes. It was an unbelievably orchestrated event. And I know, of course, in the intro, Joe, you say Falcon Heavy goes, center core goes boom. The important thing about this mission, this was probably the most advanced, most technically challenging launch in history. I know Saturn V and the Apollo missions are probably still, by all other regards, more advanced and more important, of course, and required a lot of events too, So maybe that still counts. But at least in the 21st century, I don't think anyone's done anything even remotely as complicated as this. This was...
was the moon in the last century?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it was.
In the 20th century. We're in the 21st century.
I guess I was thinking over 100 years ago. I'm wait a minute.
No, not over. We're coming up on 50 years. But it was last century. So at least, yeah.
I just realized that would have been the best joke ever in 2001, or I guess the year 2000. This is the so far the best win of the century for this team. right?
Do you not remember how many jokes just like that were told that year?
Man, I was a punk skater kid. I was just stoned out of my mind the whole time. I don't remember any of it. It wasn't
That
until
was the most stoned you had been that entire century.
I know. That's right. Yeah, and even now when it's legal here in California, it still, doesn't compare.
Wow. Wow, you guys.
A lot of drug talk today for some reason.
Yeah. What? I didn't know you guys were such crazy guys. Okay, so anyway, so here's the crazy part. So basically, when you're talking about reusing anything here, you kind of have to work backwards. You have to take your final destination. You have to say how much energy is it going to take to do this. Okay, cool. We have this much energy in our upper stage, but now if it's a pretty light payload. So what if we tack on all these other payloads, and what if they're going to this orbit? Okay, we can subtract that from the upper stage. The upper stage is no problem still. And then, you basically need to see how much can the upper stage do. And you get down to the point where it's at 0 remaining delta V, 0 once it's, fully loaded, all that. And that basically tells you how much does that center core need to do. And based on how much work that center core needs to do really defines the center core's trajectory. Because especially in the first part of the mission, the biggest difference between a really hard to, recover mission and an very easy one is how fast that and how long what amount of time that center core burns for. So the longer you burn, giving energy, before you stage separation, you're making it so that the upper stage doesn't have to do that work. The first stage did it for you. But the more you burn that first stage, the less it has to be able to do its landing burn.
So that's what I wanted to ask you, because then this is what we talked about before, why Falcon Heavy exists, is so that the other two boosters can do a lot of that work from the get-go, and then the center core can, take off from there, essentially.
Yep.
Now, so this was the furthest out that the center core was ever going to land.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
It did another sea landing, I guess, if you guys didn't see that, right? Another water landing.
Yep.
But the deal, so what would it have been better to... So... The side boosters separate, and then they do a boost back burn and turn around.
Yep.
Now, what if they didn't do that? What if they also tried to land on drone ships? Could they, your net difficulty level of, recovering them, would that be less if you had 3 drone ships out there that were, say, a shorter distance?
Yes.
That's kind of when I saw this, I'm like, well, why don't you just land them all on there,
Oh, why don't you just...
No, not there yet, but yeah. But that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, that seems like, your chance of recovering the center core extremely low, or chance of recovering all 3 medium low.
Nope, you're 100% right. Actually, I think probably the biggest factor in that is just the fact that they don't have 3 drone ships.
Oh. Well,
I mean,
why don't they just make more drone ships? That seems like an obvious one.
I think at this point, I don't know if they could pay off the development. If the Falcon Heavy might have a dozen launches or something, and I mean, granted, if they keep losing center cores, it might have been worth it. But you're exactly right that if they don't have to do a boost back burn, think about they can basically omit that burn time on those side cores.
Which is a lot, right?
Which is a lot, yeah. Give that energy to the center core in the upper stage. And the crazy part, too, about, the center core coasting and burning and all that stuff is that not only so if you burn for, say, 5 seconds longer, that's all it takes. You're now going quite a bit faster, quite a bit further down range, and the heating on reentry goes up by velocity cubed. So in this case, the speed was 20% faster. So 1.2 times faster, right? So normally, if you think if it goes up by the square, inverse law. So say you were to go from 1.2 to times 1.2, right? That would be 1.44 times more heat. So if it was cubed or if it was squared, you go 20% faster, you end up getting 40% more heat. But that's not actually the case. What it actually happens is 1.2 times 1.2 times 1.2 equals 1.72, so 70% more heat just because you're going 20% faster. And so, by pushing it, they're riding that the absolute limit of, if you burn for a little bit longer, not only do you not have very much fuel to do, less fuel to do your entry burn and your landing burn, but you're also, so what they had to basically exchange was this idea that like, we're going to burn for a little bit longer, and now we have even less fuel to do our entry burn, even though it's an even hotter thing. So they just were hoping that the center core could survive entry, basically. And come to find out, what we learned is it really kind of did not. It did. I mean, it did-ish.
Yeah, it messed up the engines, right?
Exactly. So we got a pretty decent rundown on this. So this was not my actual reaction to the center core. This was me re-recording it like on air, and then I got it up on Twitter. But that's what we saw. So it looked to me like it was coming down on the deck.
For those listening, it looks like it's. I mean, it was pretty close, but then just at the last minute, it took it was like a curveball. It just kind of took a little turn and attempted a water landing.
I feel like that was intentional, so that they didn't destroy or damage the ship, the drone ship.
Yep.
I also love how the drone ship always cuts out when it lands,
and now,
but when it hits the water, it records the whole thing perfectly.
Well, you know why?
Well, because it didn't have a freaking rocket
Because the engine
land on
isn't
it.
messing with the...
Exactly. If it's missing the drone ship, the exhaust and plasma is missing the upload uplink satellite. So it actually makes perfect sense that they get really crystal clear images when it misses the deck. But if I had done a little bit longer video here, a few frames before this, the flame or the exhaust was right down the center of the drone ship.
Right, you could see it light up as if it were right there.
It was right there.
Yeah.
And we actually found out it literally was like coming in for what looked like an almost perfect landing, but the computer realized. So I asked, if this is an intentional diversion, and we got talking about the poor grid fins that got lost. So then Pauline asked, high entry force and heat breached engine bay and center engine TVC field. So basically that re-entry heating broke through the heat shield. There's a titanium heat shield at the base in the octaweb, and it ended up damaging some of the TVC, which is thrust vector control. That's basically the thing that steers the engines. And then I asked, did the computer know that and know to divert? And Elon said, most likely it's programmed to do so. So that's pretty wild. It actually diverted away, and what people are kind of figuring out is basically if the TVC on the center engine is a little bit wonky and the computer realizes it's coming down, it has two outer engines that were still firing at this time. So it had three engines. The center engine's pretty wonky. Maybe it's not doing the right inputs or too slow. If maybe one of the things is damaged, the computer's trying to tell it to do something, but it's not reacting in the way it's wanting to do. It still has two other engines that can steer and throttle and do all this stuff. And apparently the computer realized, I don't have full control over this. And basically it's programmed to ditch itself. Mm-hmm. So they probably just all slammed in one direction. Yep, full throttle and just fly away. Yeeted itself into the ocean.
That is the rocket version of the end of Terminator 2.
Yes, it is. The thumb going into the lava or into the molten metal. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. So
I know why you cry, but it's something I can never do.
I would love it if they had a voice, if we could hear the center core just talking, I can't land. I'm sorry. I love you all. Just flies away.
Make it happen, internet.
Make it happen, Elon. Oh, so that was between that. So we replayed that 10 times in my live stream because it was, you could tell that it was so close. The fact that it survived entry, got that far along, and then had to ditch itself into the ocean. Oh.
Now, I wonder, Tim, why don't they... not another why don't they just, but there's a crew nearby, and why don't they have a camera? I'm sure they do.
They're 10 miles away.
Okay, so they
16
need
kilometers away.
They need that super awesome everyday astronaut camera lens, and they can actually see that. Well,
there is footage occasionally from the drone from the support deck, but that's 10 miles away. 16 miles away is you're recording 4 pixels on a rocky thing. And of course there's probably tons of footage. I bet there's 10 cameras that caught this.
Yeah.
we're just probably never going to see it unless they do another like remake of that, of that How Not to Land an Orbital class rocket thing or whatever.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, it was such a roller coaster because they still, or a friendly reminder, they still haven't actually brought a center core home. They've never brought one home because the one that you guys saw fell over on the deck. One. Yep. And this time they were prepared for that. They changed the Octograbber to be able to support Falcon Heavy center core.
I forgot about that. You're right.
So they're ready for it this time.
Well, I was gonna ask, did they update the Roomba thing?
Yep.
And then I was actually thinking like, well, if I was on the finance team, I might be like, why don't we just land a few of them before we spend a ton of money like updating this thing? Because if we can't do that, then what's the point?
Right. So they almost did it, and of course, the first time they ever flew the Falcon Heavy, it also didn't recover. So, yeah.
So the two boosters landed successfully.
Yep.
The center core did not.
Yep.
Did anything else get recovered? Was anything else successfully?
Well, what?
There was one more feather in a cap there somewhere.
What a great question. Let me see if I can find. Okay, so I want to show you guys my reaction to this because I actually forgot that they were even attempting it because we got so distracted by the center core, crashing, then all the deployments of like millions of freaking satellites at once, or 24 or whatever, and all these different things. So this is my reaction. All of a sudden, just out of nowhere, they casually pop up on the screen this weird image, and I'm just looking at it for a second.
So explain what happened here for people just listening.
Yeah. So what you're seeing, so basically on the screen, all of a sudden you just see this weird like blue thing. And at first I thought it was like a shot of like from inside one of the fuel tanks or something. I didn't recognize it. I didn't recognize this camera shot.
You thought
I've
it was
never
in
seen
space
it.
or something.
Yeah, it looks weird, doesn't it? It's like all black, except for a blue weird thing, a little bit of white stuff, and just some lights. And I'm just like, what the heck? So it took me like 2 or 3 seconds to understand what I'm looking at. And then all of a sudden I realized off on the left corner, you can see a white fairing. And ta-da, they did it. They caught one. Barely. I mean, it's
at
like...
night, no less.
At night, yep. Isn't that amazing? So, fun reminder about this fairing. That thing is bigger. You can fit a school bus inside that fairing.
So they caught the fairing for the first time. And it was a different boat?
Same boat, new name.
Oh, so this used to be Mr. Stevens.
Yep, this was Mr. Steven, and now it's Miss Tree.
All right.
So it actually just got the company that owned Mr. Steven, I think, went bankrupt actually, and sold the boat off to a different company who then renamed the vessel and named it Miss Tree, which is interesting name.
Like mystery?
Mystery. Yeah, I guess. Yep.
Never send a mister to send a miss job.
See? There you go. Now they did it.
I was feeling really bad for Mr. Steven because he tried and he tried and he tried and he tried, and then Miss Tree shows up and just catches it on the first time. Well, now I feel a little better because it's the same guy. Okay.
Yeah, same person. You can still love whoever they are regardless of how they identify themselves. So,
But now, as long as they're catching it, though, we only like winners here, Tim. Okay.
So this was a huge, these are estimated to be 5 or 6 million for the pair. Of course, they only caught one half so far successfully, but now they hopefully once they get more confidence in this, I think we'll just start seeing it. One day we'll see a second ship pop up, and you'll start seeing them always trying to catch both halves. And again, I think the big difference is most customers probably wouldn't want or even have spacecraft that could handle something that's been dipped in the ocean, because some of the acoustic tiles and stuff like that probably just should never see seawater at all. And but for this, if they're dry, they can basically reuse them for anything. SpaceX will probably use the ones that take a dip. They'll probably reuse those for their own Starlink stuff, which is less like critical. So yeah, crazy, right?
That's cool.
This is the most like MacGyver-ish thing I've ever seen.
Wile E. Coyote. It really is.
You literally just like, let's make a big net. All right. See, I could work in space. I could just come up with ideas like this.
Well, I think it was at the Falcon Heavy press conference. Elon told his engineers, like, imagine you have a crate with a pallet with $6 million in cash strapped to it, falling from space, catch it. That was the challenge, And you can tell that's literally what they did. Like, okay, we'll throw a parachute on the thing and get a big old net and we'll catch it.
Have they tried the catch in air thing? Because that was a thing, right? Didn't we do that with some stuff that was coming back to Earth one time? We'd catch it.
Yes.
Yeah, with a hook on the end of a plane.
Yes, like the
we
Corona
did that
satellites.
for spy satellites back in the early days.
Exactly. We did it with the Corona spy satellites. That's a valid option when you're dealing with something small. Like those Corona satellites are like the size of a baseball, basically, or a basketball. Like they're really small. The parachute that goes with it is really small. A plane can grab it and no problem. The plane will probably not even know it's there. When you're talking about a fairing that's bigger than a school bus with a parachute twice as big as that almost, that would take can you imagine how big of a plane it would take?
A plane's probably not the best idea. Probably like a few helicopters network together or something like that, Like,
and we've talked about it on the show.
Some kind of thing that could figure it out.
We've talked about it on the show. Yeah. This is probably just the cheapest, simplest approach, and it looks like they got it to work. Just like trying to land on the drone ship, people said it was impossible, and why don't they just make it bigger and do all these crazy things? And people even suggested, like, how about when it's landing, you fly some drones up and grab onto it and help it land better? It's like, no, why don't we just get better at this?
Just like hit it with some paintballs or something to like steer it a little bit.
Yes.
Little turret ships or something out there.
It's like a Rube Goldberg recovery mission.
Rube Goldberg recovery machine. I love it. Which does bring us on to, I'll finish up my stuff with, we did get a why don't they just that pertains exactly to this, because, why don't they just change up the system and catch a fairing? So Northern Aeronautical at Northern Aerona 1 says, why don't they just put the parachutes on Falcon 9 fairings instead of parasails? So parasails are the ones that can steer. Parachutes are like, think of just a parachute that just goes straight down. Wouldn't having a parachute be better because it would have a more straight descent? Thus, Mr. Steven, or now Miss Tree, have an easier chance of catching it. So knowing what we know, what do you guys think?
The answer is no. I'll give you from the footage we've seen, it sounds like, I don't know if it's programmed this way or if they actually control the direction it's going, but I would imagine if it's just a parachute coming down, wind is going to be hell, and it's just going to blow that thing all over the place. So if you can steer it, you might have a better shot of catching it. That's my guess.
Joe?
I imagine the steering is pretty important, but I'm also imagining that if a parasail doesn't come straight down, it kind of comes at an angle that might make it easier for the ship to actually kind of line up its coordinates and just kind of like come in on a line and just like land like that.
You two are nailed
it.
No, I think that's like 100% right. If you're heading on a vector, you actually are eliminating a lot of variables. It's easier for the ship to be able to
see
stay along that same vector
and say, oh, okay.
Yep, and all they really have to do is speed up and slow down. They don't really have to worry about going left or right to try to catch it. They can just stay on that same vector, speed up or slow down, and hopefully catch it. Because as long as the parasail, and the other thing is, it is riding it kind of almost. It almost looks like it's surfing when you see video of the fairing, coming down and landing. The fairing's at an angle. If you just had a parachute there, I would imagine that thing would just have no control. It'd go floppy, woppy, dippy all over the place, and it'd be very unpredictable. Floppy,
I want
woppy,
a t-shirt
dippy.
with flappy, woppy, dippy in it.
Did we talk about potentially having the COPV thrusters on the fairing itself?
They do have them.
Oh, okay. Fairing. So can they steer with that? That seems that'd be kind of neat if you could just oh crap, it's need to speed up, slow down, and just have a few of them pointed in whatever direction.
I think they're mostly used for orientation to make sure it re-enters the atmosphere the correct way. Like the rounded edge into the wind stream as opposed to like cupping it, because that would be really bad or really unstable. So I think they're mostly just for orientation purposes. But I wonder if they actually do have a little bit of ability like in the atmosphere. That'd be pretty cool. Probably wouldn't do a lot though. But the simple, I think the overall answer, like you guys said, is no, it's not easier. They did it now, and this is
Right.
kind of a fun. Why don't they just to do this week, because we can finally say they can officially do it, and hopefully from here on out they just get better and better at it.
Yeah.
So
Is this
Why?
I mean, not obviously as big of a deal, but like the first time they landed a booster back somewhere or on a ship, I think was the first ones, right? Like after they landed that first one, did they? How long until they landed a second one? Was it like the next time, or was it
basically-
like a couple more misses and then it was like 35 in a row?
yeah,
It was like-
well, they had a hard time landing on the drone ship for a little
Right.
bit, and it was just weird circumstances too. Like they should have.
A leg broke, the ship was going like this.
Well,
yeah,
and also they were high energy missions too. So there were ones where they required a lot of performance out of the Falcon 9. So they're having to go from like a simple, easy landing to trying to do like a 3-engine landing burn and get all these other variables in place in order to land on the drone ship. There's like 3 attempts, I think, after the first landing before they finally did get it on CRS-8. And that was because that mission was easy enough. They could have done a land landing, but they intentionally basically just parked the ship, like not too far out there, and let it do an easy, basically drone ship landing. And that was their first drone ship landing. And then after that, literally, I think they've only like messed up 3 landings or something since then, 3 or 4. Like it's just, and that was way back in the day. I mean, they've done like 40 landings now or something.
Not including center cores, right?
Including center cores.
Oh, okay.
I mean, literally, I think they've only messed up ones they were attempting to land. I think since like CRS-8, I would say there's probably only been 4 that didn't make it home.
Two Falcon
4 or 5.
heavy center cores, then the one water landing.
Yep, and then one that had engines cut out above the deck. I think other than that, I think they're...
Because
I think
the
they've had
one Falcon Heavy that we saw in person was a good, successful landing. They just didn't
Correct.
recover it.
Correct. Yep. So again, I feel like we say this just about every week. Hats off to the teams at SpaceX for just pushing the envelope. This was a rocket pushed to the absolute limits and did unbelievable things, and setting a new goalpost. That's a high. A lot of the things that they practiced on that first Falcon Heavy mission, like flying through the radiation belts intentionally and reigniting the stage after like hours, was because of this mission that the Air Force wanted. So they had to test out some of those like long coasting phases and stuff like that with the first Falcon Heavy mission. So great work, and
Man,
Well, it's exciting to me because, we saw that demo with the Tesla going out there, and that was all cool and exciting and everything. And then it was quiet for about a year. And now it's like actually in rotation. You got an April launch, you got a June launch.
Yep.
I don't know what the next one is, but I'm sure it's not too far away. But
next year.
but this June one, the fact that they
October?
pushed it to its absolute limits, I don't know. That's exciting to me. It's like they're really seeing they're still kind of figuring out what all they can do with this thing. It's still brand new.
Exactly. And they're just stretching its legs, getting more data. This is one of those situations where they're probably pretty much done developing Falcon Heavy and Falcon 9. Like, they don't want to waste any more money. But they now know the limits, and they'll be able to use that data for something in the near future. I have no doubt,
Yeah.
And
So-
speaking of pushing it to the limits here, Tesla deliveries coming in
Yeah?
hot this quarter.
Really?
Let
Oh
me
yeah,
tell
there's
you.
this whole other company that we usually talk about. I forgot.
Well,
By the way, hang on. I do need to say, people are like, this is just an Elon Musk podcast. It's like, it's called Our Ludicrous Future. Like, as a nod, we have a Falcon 9, we have a boring company thing on our logo, and a Tesla. I mean, like, come on. I mean, we're not exclusive to Elon, but it's pretty much, he's a busy guy to keep up with. It takes a team of 3 of us to keep up with him.
Yeah, it's like the people ask me about reviewing other electric cars, and I've now settled on my answer is I will review another electric car when it has longer range than a 2012 Model S. That's when I will start looking at other electric cars.
Yep.
Until then, not interested.
All right. So what is it about this other, I don't know, that other company?
Pushing the limits here. Push it to the limit. So Q2 is almost up, and it is time to set a delivery record. So there's not a ton of news here, so it won't be a lot to talk about. But new email coming out from Elon saying that they must go all out to set a delivery record. And this was yet another leaked email. I wonder if when he sends emails, he just does it like maybe there's actually a lawyer that looks at the email beforehand. Is like, okay, like let's just make sure, because we know it's going to get out there. So whatever, like let's just make sure we don't say anything like,
leaked.
Right.
Like he has any illusions that what he writes is not going to be sent out to everybody in the world.
Right. Just a quick note on that. Did you see that it was the new Moto Z or something cell phone was listed on Amazon? It was not released yet. It was, whatever, leaked. And it was listed there long enough that a guy ordered it and it got delivered. Marquez was talking about, he's like, okay, so what? Okay, whatever. It's just officially released then at that point, right? Like, it got leaked. It's like the guy that bought the google.com domain because of a bug. So the story is they're coming in hot for this quarter, trying to hit a all-time high deliveries. And remember, delivery is the important part.
Yep.
The important number to look at, not just reservations or cars in transit or whatever. The previous best was at in Q4 of 2018 at 90,700. And they're between 90 and 100,000 this quarter. That includes a lot into Europe. Also, we see right-hand drive cars being delivered in the UK. So if anyone is from Australia, it sounds like those are available. Hopefully they're in transit, if not already, at port. So we'll ought to be seeing some of that soon. And so this just, all good signs here in terms of deliveries, and that is really the biggest. The biggest thing. So there was also some other reports stating that Tesla was delivering about 1,000 cars per day. And as kind of happens in Tesla fashion, the community is kind of coming together to help delivery teams around the country. So there's that. It feels like it's like frothy, like the Tesla deliveries and stuff. It's not boiled over, but it's frothing up. It's getting there, and so hopefully we will get numbers next week of production and deliveries. We'll be in the first week of July, so the first week after the quarter ends, and then we'll have an earnings call a month after that, typically. So maybe the first week in August, and I will actually be live streaming the earnings call because they don't post it on YouTube. And I have partnered up with Clean Technica to have all of the analyst questions pop up on the screen with information about the analyst, or like, are they a bear or are they a bull? So it's actually going to be a whole interactive thing that Clean Technica has like a team of people that are going to be sitting there basically typing in what the question was, and like every analyst that pops in, you'll see information about them, if they have a short position, how big that position is, those kind of a thing. So earnings call coming in a month, and production numbers coming next week. So next week we'll have a whole lot of Tesla stuff to talk about. But until then, we're just kind of, fingers crossed, things are looking good for now.
Cool.
Dang.
Do they have a like an upper limit? Right? Yeah, no, I want my baby back. So 90,000 was their record in Q4. We're looking at roughly, maybe possibly that again this quarter. They can only make so many cars right now with the number of factories that they have. Do we know what that upper limit is? And if they hit that upper limit, is it going to cause people to flip out? And everybody's going to flip out no matter what with the stock price. But it's this whole idea of like, we have to make a record every single quarter kind of thing.
Right.
It's like, is that sustainable? I guess is where I'm coming down to here.
Right. Like, how close are we to max Q? To use an analogy, max Q of production for cars at Tesla. We're getting pretty close. So Elon had said this a while ago, but of course, these numbers can dramatically shift. But he was talking about 10,000 cars a week. And I think the last time I saw any kind of official numbers, it was around 7,000. Mm-hmm. So about 1,000 cars a day. But then the big bottleneck was deliveries. And what do you do about, shipping thousands of cars to Europe and Asia and everywhere else? Like, so then that was the big challenge last quarter. So if they can kind of just hit, autopilot here, and do 1,000 cars per day, minus maintenance and a few things here and there throughout the year that will just require them to slow down a little bit. They should be upwards of 300,000 cars per year, which would be incredible. That I think they had ended up with like 250 or 245,000 last year, so right around 250,000. So they're getting pretty close to max Q here in terms of production. So the next
that's
thing
why I was thinking 90,000 cars. There's about 90 days and a quarter ish.
Yeah.
So that's almost 1,000 a day right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean 360,000 roughly, right? If you had that. So you're getting close. Then comes in, enter China factory, which is coming on extremely quick. So I think they didn't anticipate any cars to be produced this year from that factory, but now they're taking reservations for Model 3 made in China. And they, I think, said that they hope to have some coming off the line this year and then volume production starting next year. And then also introduce Model Y, which I believe is going to be now produced at Fremont. So there's going to be some time to shift some of the parts and deal with some of those things. So there's going to be quite a few things that changes to their current production lines and stuff that will slow it down a bit. But if you can chalk it up, like if we ended up the year at 300,000, I wouldn't be shocked. If it was 350,000, I'd be like, holy crap. And then next year, when China coming online and getting closer and closer, we're going to be probably north of 500,000. And then Model Y, adding that line, 500,000. So then in 2 years' time, I mean, within 3 years, we'll probably be looking at, so 3 years from now, so 2022, we'll probably be looking at 1 million cars per year. They did also mention at the latest annual shareholders meeting that there is a European Gigafactory. It's funny, they posted a photo. And I don't know if you saw it, but it was like, we literally just Googled something and put that photo in there. So this isn't actually where it's going to be. So don't try to find that. And Elon's like, yeah, I think it's in Germany. And I was like, no. but anyways, so European Gigafactory.
Not do that.
Yeah, of course.
But do you think that is is the Gigafactory going to be in Germany, or do we still not know?
It would make a whole lot of sense because that's the Groman company, I think is what they're called. I believe Tesla bought this company or they have a contract with them or something, but they're the ones that actually make a lot of the manufacturing equipment that is used at their facilities. So, and Germany obviously has an extremely strong manufacturing center with all the other German auto brands there. So it would make a whole lot of sense to put it in Germany. Yeah. I don't have any stake in the game, so I don't know one way or the other, but that's just from the outside seems like it would make a lot of sense. So then 5 years time, maybe that's up and running a little bit. Maybe there's a second gigafactory in the U.S. that's making cars, a second car gigafactory. We're looking within maybe 5-6 years time, well over 1 million cars produced per year. So I think, the whole EV revolution thing, man, like it's picking up steam. It's frothy. It's bubbling up.
That's the word of the day.
Yeah. I don't know if I like it. As frothy azimuth. Oh, dang. So things are looking pretty good. Really?
And I got the new game on my...
You did?
On my
Beach
car.
Buggy?
Are you the first?
Buggy, Bingo Blast or whatever. I don't know.
I don't have it. Ben, do you have it?
Yep.
Ah, you guys. Dang it.
So I'm just going to go play it all day now, just to spite you. I'm just going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm sending you pictures. Oh, Tim, I'm beating your record. You'll never get there.
Beating my record. Well, yeah. Play it for half a second. You'll beat my record because I don't have it.
Just saying. Winning is winning.
I played it for about 5 minutes just to see what it's about. And what I learned is that the wheel, if you turn it like a centimeter, it goes right into a wall. Like there's like no...
Yeah.
Am I alone in this? Because
there's no.
I was
no
turning it like a regular
it.
steering wheel, and it was just like bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Maybe they do that so you don't totally wear a flat spot in your tires.
Yeah, there was some people commenting about that, how they showed a video of it and they showed the tires moving, and people were like, "Oh, that's gonna." I'm like, do you know how like those tires are rated to last so long? Do you know how long you'd have to play this video game to actually make any meaningful, impact on those tires? It would take a long time.
There's a video. Why don't you plug your car in, call Simone Yetch and have her design a robot that just turns the steering wheel back and forth
a bazillion times.
And see how long it would take to have a discernible flat patch in your tire.
Well,
I would watch that.
Physics girl's here in San Diego, so I could just call her and say, hey, can you just calculate this so we don't even have to do the experiment? Just just do
But
that.
the experiment's half the fun.
Yeah, but it
Come
takes
on.
so long.
Yeah.
Math is better. It's a better answer.
It's true.
Says the data guy.
Yeah. Oh, so we did it, I think, right? We talked about all
It's good to be back. It's good to have us all.
Yeah, it's been a while since all three of us have been here.
Yeah. It's like the first time in a month. And next week, I'll probably be in person with Ben, hopefully, because I'll be down in Southern California. So we'll have to make that happen. So, yeah, maybe we'll do it on the beach surfing.
We'll do it in the car playing a video game.
I'm into that, actually.
The audio sucks, though. It's
but still very into that idea. What are you guys working on for videos? Joe?
Oh man, what am I working on? I'm doing a video on the feasibility and whether or not it's a good idea to resurrect extinct animals.
Ooh.
Like Jurassic
Welcome
Park, but not
to
necessarily
Jurassic
dinosaurs. But yeah, but like animals that we've made extinct.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But also just woolly mammoths, things that went away before we came along, stuff like that. Pretty interesting topic.
Trout.
Speaking of Jurassic Park, can I have a little rant? Did you guys all watch Jurassic World? The one with Chris Pratt?
I think, I saw it.
I watched it for some reason. And not for some reason. I mean, Jurassic Park's cool. I don't need to be like the cool guys. Like, I'm too cool to watch Jurassic Park, But anyway, the premise of the movie, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it and you want to just fast forward a minute. Basically, they hired these people to go get the dinosaurs off of the island to save them because the island was going to have a volcano explode or something. They're like, we got to get these dinosaurs off this island. They hired a team of all these people, millions of dollars of shipping equipment and helicopters and all this crazy stuff to wrangle up all these dinosaurs, really dangerous. And I'm like, you guys made these dinosaurs. Why don't you just make new ones?
Why don't they
Why don't they just make new? That's got to be cheaper than.
It seems like. So what's worse then, all the Star Wars continuations or the Jurassic Park ones?
Oh, Jurassic Park, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let's just piss off everyone here. Well, because I always felt like Star Wars was the original series was whoa, that was incredible. And then but even Return of the Jedi, the third one, it was wait. So they blew up the Death Star. So now you made another Death Star? You think it's going to work? And then all the other ones are we got another Death Star. Really? Really? You guys haven't figured it out that's not the answer. Really?
It does feel like every reboot is we now have there's a thing about to go online that's going to wipe out planets. Guys, get a new protagonist.
Yeah.
You've already done that every single episode.
Well, and Jurassic Park is the same deal. Oh, wait, we're going back to the island.
Yeah.
If you don't want to die, stop going back. It's that easy.
We solved that one. So, Ben, what are you working on?
Well, okay, what day is it today? So, depending on when this posts or not, probably so the day after this post, I believe, I will have a video coming out about the new feature we have in TesLab for rating superchargers. So, probably by the time people are listening to this, you can, if you have TesLab, it'll already be released. So now you'll have a new feature in there where you can actually, if you visit a supercharger, you will then be asked questions after your visit, and you'll rate things if there's bathrooms, how clean they are, if there's food nearby, whatever. And then, you can do things let's say you're planning a trip or you're heading somewhere, you can actually click on them, search for them, click on them, and see the ratings of the superchargers in advance of going there, and even send the directions to your car. So it's cool, because this is the first step in the TesLab kind of space that we're trying to create more community features. So it's not just the Fitbit for the Tesla thing. It's this is a space where Tesla owners, because you have to be a Tesla owner to log in, can share this information with each other. So that's what's coming out next. And then I've got like 15 other videos already lined up, but that's the main one right now.
Cool.
Sweet.
What about you, Mr. Scott
Well,
or Tim?
I'm not Mr. Scott.
I've already talked.
Timmy D.
No. Okay, so I am working on. I'm kind of having people try to figure out some of the pollution stuff for me. I'm trying to be smart and get ahead on that one because that's going to take forever. There's a lot of data in there. Do you know any data people?
What's the pollution stuff? What are you talking about?
I have a video that I was working on, or like am continually working. It's going to be another one of those Raptor ones where it's a rabbit hole, where I just go over all the environmental impacts of rockets. So they're like CO2 output, they're crashing into the ocean, what that does for the ocean, and like space debris also as a kind of tangent of that.
Yeah, I wondered about because even if they lands on a drone ship, it dumps all the hazards or something, right?
Yeah, saves the fuels and stuff.
Yeah, I'm curious about all that. Because it doesn't seem like that's very cool, but at the same time, it's like the ocean is so giant and we don't do it like hardly at all. So even if you did like 100 rockets a year, it'd be no big deal.
Oh, it'd be a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of that of even like airliners,
Right. Yeah.
So that's basically what I want to find all those numbers. So I actually have the actual numbers for all that stuff. So I think that'll be a fun one. That's like a long-term one. The next one I'm going to release before the 50th anniversary of the Apollo lander is about why was it missing a rung on the ladder? Have you guys ever noticed like
the Apollo 11?
Especially Apollo 11.
Yeah.
And all subsequent missions I think had, or did they add a rung after that?
I will defer to you, but I thought that because he was having more trouble on Apollo 11, they added a rung. But I could be wrong about that.
I will find out because there's a huge gap. It's like up to his chest, where the first rung is.
Yeah, and they didn't know if he'd be able to get back up there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you answer why you even need a ladder?
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. Mostly, I mean, even though it's 1/6 of it.
Because it's above where he is, and he has to crawl.
I mean, can't you jump? Like, is his vertical leap that bad?
Well,
do we need?
You realize that it's like the floor is like literally like 5 meters up. It's like 15 feet up. Like that's the platform. And
so
if you're wearing a heavy spacesuit,
carry the 2. So it's like 2 feet up.
Still, would you want to do that with the spacesuit on? And like, if you trip and fall, you're gonna just die.
Space is trying to kill you.
I guess. Since you asked that, why don't I answer that? Because there'll probably be people that'll be, why do they need a ladder at all? So there's gonna be all those smart guys out there that are trying to get one up on me.
They should have I saw Matt Damon poke a hole in his suit. Right.
So we have that data.
Science, people. That's what I want.
Yep. All right. Well, should we do it?
Let's do it.
All right.
We'll see you
in our ludicrous
future.
Hey, thanks so much for watching and or listening to Our Ludicrous Future. We really enjoy doing this, so if you like this show, we invite you to please go and give us a nice 5-star review on iTunes or your podcast listener thing of choice. And if you really love what we do have a Patreon set up now where you can go and donate whatever you can donate. And there's little perks that you can get from that, including getting your name in the credits, amongst other things. Access to us is pretty cool. So thanks again for listening and support however you can. And we do appreciate it very much. Thanks.